Red. Yeah, red. Oh, music.
Yeah.
Nothing there. It's a bad sign. Oh, I know why.
A little bit out of practice.
A little bit. I know. It's been a while.
Oh, here we go.
I have to push the thing.
I love this music.
I know.
So much. I want to like bang my head.
So it's been weeks and
weeks and weeks.
Weeks and weeks. You were in New York.
I was in New York for 2 weeks, in Boston / New Hampshire for another week. Almost a week, yeah.
3 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
Total?
Yeah.
You were gone?
It was crazy.
Was it awesome? Have you been...
Freaking amazing.
Have you been to the Big Apple before?
Oh, yeah. I had been there a couple of times, but just for like 2 or 3 days at a time for either work or one time I went, the first time I went for a wedding of a friend, but you know, it was like we got there the day before and then the day of the wedding, and then there was not much like wandering around checking it out. So I've been probably 3 times before, just for a day or two here and there. And this time I was actually, what I did is I flew to Boston. I have a girlfriend who lives in Brooklyn, and I thought
a friend that's a girl.
A friend that's a girl. Yeah.
Right.
I know, that's the weird thing nowadays. You can't say girlfriend anymore. I mean, you can, but people think something differently. So,
well, you know, nobody judges nowadays, so it's like,
right,
hey,
which is great. But now people get confused because I just say my girlfriend, my friend who's a girl.
Plus, you've got the whole Women's World Cup going in soccer right now.
Okay, let's not even talk about that right this minute because I have a lot to say about all of that shit.
Okay, fine.
Soccer has literally inundated my life in this last few weeks.
I'm just saying the girlfriends are a thing for the U.S.
Yeah, that's true.
World Cup team.
Anyway. Oh, wait, you're taking pictures with my glasses on.
Yeah.
Take them off. The plan was to fly to Boston, take a train down to New York, and then stay there for 2 or 3 days. I'm all awkward with my sitting positions here.
All right. Well, it's because your seat's too high. But you need that so you can speak into the microphone, but not for the picture.
So I got to Brooklyn or New York. We met and we did a couple of days of just kind of hanging out and meeting her friends and like reconnecting. She's an amazing, amazing human. After the second day, I was like, oh God, I don't want to go. And she's like, just stay as long as you want. So I stayed for 2 weeks. I slept on her couch for 2 weeks. And
I'm surprised you made it back.
I almost didn't come back.
Right.
Honestly, I had so much fun. And here's something interesting. So before I went, for the previous, I'm going to say 9 months before I went on this trip, if not longer, I, for some reason or other, never wanted to spend any time alone. So, and I've spent the entire previous 40 plus years wanting to just be super independent, really loving my alone time. But for the last year or so, there's so much noise that's been going on in my head that I didn't want to hear. Everything okay?
Yeah, no. Life is good.
I didn't want to be alone in my house or anywhere. So I've spent the last year like hanging out with friends after work or working really late or like going knee deep with my kids and something or whatever.
Right.
So I went to New York. She had to work, obviously, because she had a life.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent 2 weeks wandering either New York City, like Manhattan or Brooklyn by myself all day long. Just
really.
And it was amazing.
So just like
I had so much time, but I wasn't sitting on a couch with like silence. I was wandering the streets of New York and I was experiencing whatever, parks or museums or restaurants or bars or what, but I was by myself. So lo and behold, now that I'm back here in Pleasantville, I love
the city girl came out.
Like I'm back. What? No, I don't mind being alone anymore. I had so much time like to sort out all the noise in my head with a little bit of background noise that it wasn't so painful. That now it's like, oh, I feel good again. I want to go home. I want to have, some quiet time. I want to, whatever.
So what's his name?
What's whose name?
In New York.
No, I didn't go out. Well, actually I had a few dates.
Okay.
But there's nobody.
Really? No Puerto Rican guy or something?
Well, there were 100,000 of them at the Puerto Rican Day Parade, which was amazing.
God.
It was amazing.
You had a Puerto Rican Day Parade?
I didn't tell you this, but we haven't really talked about much of anything.
Man.
One day I hop on the subway And I didn't.
It's like finding a duffel bag with like 100 grand in it for you.
Totally. I went, I got on the subway. I see some people like with these Puerto Rican flags kind of like around their forehead and then like the more I was on, the more people kind of kept coming on. Excuse me.
You can just cough.
Sorry, that was rude. So I was like, oh, what's going on? And this is kind of what I did all the time. It's like I would get on the subway and not really know where I was going to get off, right? So I finally get off where there's a whole bunch of, people with these Puerto Rican flags.
Puerto Rican guys. You're like,
I'm like, all right, I'm going to check out what's going on. So, and I took video of this. I started following them. And we end up in the middle of Manhattan on Fifth Avenue, the same place, I think, where they do the Thanksgiving Day parade.
Okay.
There's literally hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans there. In having a parade, the best parade I have ever seen in my entire freaking life. Ever. And I was born on 4th of July, so I've seen some parades.
You've seen some parades.
No, this was the best parade ever. Ever. I mean, like, big floats driving down the street playing
so it's
Daddy
a whole,
Yankee.
It's a whole parade.
Oh, a real parade.
Like the full-on parade.
Like it looked like, I'm sure like, this was a much smaller version of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade, but it was in the same,
off and
the entire city.
There's no traffic.
I was the only like gringa there, I think. I swear to God. And here's the thing. I was like, oh, this is heaven. And this is going to be like shooting fish in a fucking barrel. I'm sure. Nope. Apparently,
wait a minute, what?
Latinos in New York don't give a shit about us.
Really?
Me in particular.
The blonde, blue-eyed.
Well, yeah.
It's not a big.
It's
thing.
like it's
all right.
It's not a thing there. Like, I was really disappointed.
Wow. So like your superpowers were gone.
Yes, that's exactly it. I showed up in New York and I lost my superpower.
You had to learn how to like walk. You couldn't fly anymore.
Exactly. And I walked up and down the street and I kind of tried to push my way. At one point I was sitting right at the fence, like right next to it. I'm like, I'm sure like Ricky Martin's going to come by on the float and he's going to see me and he's going to be like, hey, for you, I'll be straight. And because he was the Grand Marshal. Is that a thing
for you, like turning Ricky Martin?
No, I mean, he's just beautiful. Okay. Like I would, yeah. Right. I mean, if it were a thing, I mean, I wouldn't object. But. Yeah. So anyway, that was
that was so
off topic.
I know. Was
to
that
my quiet
was that
time,
day? Yeah, that's not.
That was like
time.
The third day I was there. It was like the first. See, I got there. Yeah, it was just a couple days after I got there.
So let me get this straight. You followed some Puerto Ricans off a subway to a parade. Mm-hmm. Okay.
The best parade I've ever seen in my life.
The best parade, just followed them.
It was crazy. It was so crazy. It was like I was walking down the street following these people, and then all of a sudden the curtains opened, and I was like, "Oh my God, we're on Broadway." It was like this is the best. But come to find out that my superpowers were gone.
Did you follow a lot of people, or?
There were a couple. I mean, as we got closer and closer to the parade
nobody
route,
called the cops or nothing?
No. I got it all on video, too. I was like, this is the best. And I texted my friend. I'm like, oh, my God, I just found the parade. And she's like, what parade? I'm like, it's National Puerto Rico Day. It's a parade. And then I got all cocky, and I was like, this is great. You know what I'm going to do? This is the shit that goes through my head when I'm walking the streets of New York. So I don't know what time it was, but I was thinking the parade's probably going to be over in like an hour or so. And I wanted to go to Spanish Harlem because I was like, I'm sure most of the people who are at this parade probably live up there, right? Okay. So then what I was thinking was, I'm going to get there first. Then I can sit down in a bar or something and just wait for them all to show up. Settle in with a drink and wait for them to all show up. That was my plan. Honest to God, this was my plan.
What happened?
I got there. There was nobody there. And here's the thing I forgot is like all of the neighborhoods in New York City, they're not small. It's not like
how many blocks?
Petaluma where there's like one street and like all of the stuff that's happening is on the one little street that's 2 blocks long. It's not like that. So you have to know where to go. You have to know where to see the people. So that didn't quite work out. I wandered the streets of Spanish Harlem and found nobody. Again, second disappointment of the day. And then got back on the subway and went back to Brooklyn alone.
Wow. How was the subway? So 2 weeks.
Amazing. 2 weeks.
So what things stand out for the 2 weeks that you were there?
Here's some really good stuff. In all of the public buildings, not just in the subway, but in all public transportation buildings, so in train stations, in subway stations, everywhere, there are signs in English and in Spanish. And essentially they're advertising the drug. I don't remember the name of the drug that basically you get when you're overdosing. Necrin or something like that.
Yeah. It'll come to me as we talk.
Yeah. So that, because opioid overdose is a huge thing on the East Coast in general, even in Manchester, New Hampshire, which is very small. It's 100,000 people.
Wow.
That's a big deal. So in every place, they have these giant signs that don't say, don't do drugs or don't do
they're saying
opioids.
if you're do drugs, pack this and it will.
This is what they say. In big giant letters, they say, do them with a friend. And I'm not joking. Like,
pin a note
don't
on your
do them
shirt.
Alone. Do them with a friend.
I'm going to look it up while we talk.
And then in the very small print at the bottom, it talks about the drug itself. So
I want to say it's like the Prox.
It starts with an N, I think. Necra? I don't know. Anyway, so that's one thing I noticed. The second thing was so we know that I obviously am very fond of Mexican people.
Let's just say
for
South
many
America.
reasons,
or
like
America?
just Latino in general.
Yeah.
But in general, because we live here in California and I have a lot of friends who are from Mexico. So anyway, there were a couple times where I went to a bar with my friend and the bartender happened to be, I knew he was from Mexico. I could just tell. And I would ask, oh, hey, where are you from? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, I know you're from Mexico. In my head, I'm asking, which city in Mexico are you from? But every single time I did that, you know what the answer I got was?
What?
Oh, I'm Spanish.
What?
And yeah, that face that you just made is what I would do. And I would be like, wait.
What does that mean?
And so then I was like, well, where were you born? Oh, Mexico City.
What?
I'm like, then why are you telling me you're Spanish? And this was all, yes, Narcan.
Yes.
So this was all a very friendly, I wasn't like harassing these people, but me having been married to a Spaniard, right?
Mm-hmm.
I understand how, and I have to say this for the public, obviously this is a generalization, but my experience is with most people from Spain, they are not fond of people from Mexico. And so in my mind,
is it the whole 7 Cities of Gold thing? It was never there. They never found it. The Fountain of Youth.
I think there's a lot of reasons, but I will say that I'm in my head, I'm thinking, if I'm Mexican, I'm not going to say I'm Spanish because those fucking Spaniards don't like me anyway. So why would I even give them the credit?
No, but is it really like that?
No, I dug into it further. Okay. And basically, we're in New York City and there's people from all over the world. And
it's a language thing,
It's
right?
a language thing.
They associate.
So they think, and there's another component to this about New Yorkers, and that is apparently, because I've asked this question a few times, the reason that they're always with their headphones in and they're kind of like head down and rushing through the streets and not talking to anybody is because they're bombarded with stimuli all day long, to the nth degree.
So it's like having kids.
So all they want to do is just focus and get from one place to the next. So they don't go out of their way to say, hey, they're so friendly. If you engage somebody and you ask them a question or whatever, they're the most friendly
I'm not judging.
Group. But so back to this, this one conversation with this Mexican, I think what happens is there's probably a lot of tourists who come in or just people from everywhere and oh, hey, where are you from? And instead of having to engage in a conversation with oh, what part of Mexico? What city are you from? Oh, not because they don't like you, but because they have a shit ton of stuff to do. They're just oh, I'm Spanish because it's their version of saying I speak Spanish.
Right. That's right. Yeah. That's
and in my head, I'm well, there's 100 countries that speak Spanish and I can tell that you're from Mexico, but okay, whatever. So I did some research on it while I was there and I asked a few people and I tried to get a better understanding of why that was a thing. Me, I'm you need to shout from the rooftops where you're from. But also I've lived a very privileged life. And so for me to be, not everybody has that privilege. So right. I just have to understand that. But I wanted to just be able to embrace these people as they're my people.
God, you don't understand. I love you. Why are you saying you're Spanish?
So that's the second thing that stood out. Okay. And then the third thing is just that